So the first rule to transform your life is mastering the mental. And why don't you lead off with that and I'll chip in.
It's really going from kind of chaos to clarity, right? My life was full of chaos, and my wife may argue that there's still some chaos in my life. We just cleaned out our garage, and so the garage was a lot of chaos, and now it's some clarity in there. But about where things belong, where things go. So
Yeah,
that's what we
I've been there, done that.
spend our week doing. When you start your practice, it's really just putting out fires. You're running from one fire to the next, and all day long, you're just putting out fires. And so there's just all this chaos. There's no real role alignment. There's no real clarity in roles. I was wearing all the hats. And a lot of times I was like a tornado, right? There was a problem in intake. I had to fix it. So then I'd go insert myself into intake and I'd make a mess out of it all. And that put a lot of mental stress on me, right? I was constantly stressed out. I had a lot of anxiety, and all that leads to depression. And I had to really learn how to master the mental side of it. I had to learn how to control first myself. I had to look in the mirror and realize that I was the problem. Which is a hard thing to have to say, right? Is that you are sometimes the problem. And a lot of times, if you look in businesses, the owner is the problem. It starts with you. It really is you. And
Yeah.
that was the big first step, is realizing like, hey, I don't have to be everything to everyone. Let me really work on my mental mindset, get me in a good place. And then once I'm in a good place mentally, wow, what can we do with the business? Where can the business go?
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the 10 Golden Rules of Online Marketing for Law Firms podcast. Awesome guest today, Chris Keller. And we've been getting a lot of good feedback for our 10 Golden Rules series. And what that is, we brainstorm a little bit in advance, and Chris and I have come up with the 10 Golden Rules to rise and transform your life and your practice. So that's a pretty high standard, Chris. But one thing I'll just mention before we introduce Chris is we are at around 800 subscriptions on our YouTube channel. And I'd love to get that to 1,000, because I think then you get a channel or something, and there's other things we can do with it. So I'm looking forward to that. So if you like these webinars and podcasts and you're watching on YouTube, or even if you want to go over there and see the video, if you're watching the audio, please go to YouTube to the 10 Golden Rules channel. We'd love a subscription. Chris, welcome to the 10 Golden Rules podcast.
Thanks, Jay, for having me so much, man. I've been a fan of yours from watching your summit. And so to be able to be on your podcast is amazing.
That's right. Chris was at TGR Live. Now, he checks all the boxes for a great 10 Golden Rules podcast guest. He's an attorney. He's a speaker. He runs EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. He's in a mastermind. He's in the Fireproof Mastermind. He has his own podcast. So this one's going to be good, Chris. But welcome, and tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, Jay, thanks. I appreciate it. Like most of us, I went to law school. Didn't teach us a whole lot about the business of law. And frankly, I never wanted to be a law firm owner. I wanted to be a prosecutor, and that's where I started my career off. I started my career off in the state attorney's office, and I was there for 4 years trying cases when one day I got a phone call saying, hey, do you want to come interview at a personal injury law firm? And I was like, I didn't really apply. But needless to say, I went over, took that interview, and started down that path. I worked at a big firm here in Palm Beach County for nearly 8 years before I decided, like a lot of us, to go out and be an entrepreneur and hang my own shingle. But when I did that, I didn't know what I was doing. My dad had his own law firm, and I got to see him run a firm for 40 plus years, but I still didn't know what that meant. I didn't really have a plan. All I knew is I could bring in business. And so I thought, just because I could bring in cases, I have to be good at the rest of it. And so we started our firm back in January 2019. And then lo and behold, the next year,
By the way, that's called the E-Myth.
yeah,
And I'm sure you're familiar with the book E-Myth. But
absolutely.
essentially, that's what many of us go through is, oh, I thought I was good at marketing and digital marketing, and I started a firm. And I realized I had to learn all about sales and accounting and all these different things that I didn't have to do in a job. And it sounds like you had exactly the same assumption. I can bring in cases, I can run a law firm.
Right. If I can bring in business, I got to be good at everything else, right? We started that, and then lo and behold, in 2020, the world changed in a big way. But in those first few years, I, I was doing everything. I was wearing all the hats. I was the director of marketing, the director of finance, the director of HR, the front desk. I was taking the trash out, stocking the fridge, cleaning the toilets, whatever we had to do to get it done. My partners and I, we built our office from the ground up, and it was literally blood, sweat, and tears. Like we remodeled the office ourselves. And so we did everything, and it was great. We were growing, and we grew the business year after year. And 5 years in, we had hit 18, 19 employees and felt like things were great. But at the same time, I knew that there was more. I knew there was more because I was working 80-hour weeks or more. It was one of those things where I'd get to the office by 8. I was there till dinner time, go home, tuck the kids into bed, and go back to the office. And I was like, man, this is no way to live life. I'm making some
Yikes.
good money, but everything else is failing. That's when I got into business coaching, and that's where my life really took off and changed.
You got coached.
Yeah, I got into business coaching, and because again, I was wearing all the hats, I was doing everything, and was barely practicing law, even though I had a full caseload because throughout the day was it was running the business. And through business coaching, I went through this Power Five exercise, which really focused on your mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, and physical well-being. And in that, realized that while financially things had taken off for me in a big way since I'd left my firm, the rest of the areas were really struggling. I'd put on a lot of weight. I was drinking a lot to cope with all the stress. I wasn't taking care of myself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And going through the exercise, that's when I realized I need to make some changes because through that exercise, I learned that if I wasn't right in all those categories, and more importantly, affect my relationships with my wife, with my kids, with my firm. And so I had to make some changes. And that's when really I started adopting the 10 golden rules of how to rise and transform your business. And that's really how our firm has grown from back then 18, 19 people to now we're at 80 people. We went from one office,
Awesome.
mostly a Palm Beach County office, to now
Mm.
we're, I think, in 8 states practicing. We have physical locations in multiple states, team members in multiple states, and we've adopted virtual assistants. We have team members across the globe now.
That's a great story. And last question before we get into the 10 rules. You obviously had a great business coach who dealt with much more than business. Talk a little bit about finding that great person and how do you know when you've got a coach who's going to change your life so well, so positively?
Well, for me, I went to a summit, and at the summit, it was one of those summits that is over the top. It was in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, number one, and there was over 5,000 people there. The speakers were the likes of Jesse Cole, Kevin O'Leary, Arnold Schwarzenegger spoke that year, David Goggins. If you listen to David Goggins speak, you don't go run through a brick wall. I don't know what's going on with you, but
Yeah.
I was ready to run through a brick wall after listening to Goggins. So all these guys were really kind of amping me up, which was good. But really, the most important part of it was coming to the realization that, hey, I needed something, right? I was only going to take us so far based on my skill, based on my experience, based on my knowledge, all that kind of thing. I could only take the firm so far. And so understand that I'd reached that potential, right? Maybe I'd got as far as we were going to go. Maybe even through sheer luck at some points, right? Just through some lucky things. But I knew that if I really wanted to go to the organization, I was going to have to learn how to be a leader and how to really grow a business. And for me, even though that one was an over the top seminar, it was still that kind of moment where I realized I needed to make some changes and I needed to accept coaching. And then in the coaching, came the real mindset shift. Really, what it took was a mindset shift, right? From going to that of I can do it all. I'm the smartest person in the room. I know how to do it all. I can do it all. To, hey, maybe I'm not the smartest person in the room. Maybe I don't know how to do everything. Maybe there are other people who know more than I do and can help. And so, really going through that mindset shift really was the real big change for me.
Yeah. What's the line? When the student is ready, the teacher appears. So maybe it was just timing and fortunate alignment. Great.
Yeah,
Well, so
100%.
we're going to cover a lot of these topics, and Chris teased a little bit that the first five topics he called the power of five. We'll get into that. We called this the 10 golden rules to rise and transform your life and your practice. And you have a new book coming out called Rise and Transform, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a year to change your life, and it's really introducing this rise and transform framework.
So this is a little preview, book targeted for about September 15th, 2025. So hopefully
Yep.
you're listening to this. If you're listening to this in the future, you can hop right over to Amazon and get that. Why don't you just run again quickly through the five, and then we'll go one at a time through the first five, and then we have five more to comprise 10 golden rules?
Yeah, so the power five, and it's really kind of the first five, is really your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial well-being. Those are your power five. And so it's all about mastering the mental, your physical power, emotional and spiritual, and then obviously and hopefully financial as well.
Okay, great. So the first rule to transform your life is mastering the mental. And why don't you lead off with that and I'll chip in.
It's really going from kind of chaos to clarity, right? My life was full of chaos, and my wife may argue that there's still some chaos in my life. We know we just cleaned out our garage, and so the garage was a lot of chaos, and now it's some clarity in there. But about where things belong, where things go. So that's
Yeah,
what we
I've been there, done that.
spend our week doing. When you start your practice, it's really just going, putting out fires. You're running from one fire to the next, and all day long, you're just putting out fires. And so there's just all this chaos. There's no real role alignment. There's no real clarity in roles. I was wearing all the hats. And a lot of times I was like a tornado, right? There was a problem in intake. I had to fix it. So then I'd go insert myself into intake and I'd make a mess out of it all. And that put a lot of mental stress on me, right? I was constantly stressed out. I had a lot of anxiety, and all that leads to depression. And I had to really learn how to master the mental side of it. I had to learn how to control first myself. I had to realize, I had to look in the mirror and realize that I was the problem, which is a hard thing to have to say, right? Is that you are sometimes the problem. And a lot of times, if you look in businesses, the owner is the problem. It starts with you. It really is you. And
Yeah.
that was the big first step, is realizing like, hey, I don't have to be I don't have to be everything to everyone. Let me really work on my mental mindset, get me in a good place. And then once I'm in a good place mentally, wow, what can we do with the business? Where can the business go?
Yeah, that's great. And something you said along while explaining this is that it's really the mindset. And we did a lot of work in the seminar and event business. We did those big Tony Robbins events with Tony Robbins and a Shark Tank and a guy selling stock market course. And the one thing I learned is we were doing all the marketing and working with these experts like Tony's people and T. Harv Eker on creating the marketing and the messaging is most of this stuff is hard work, right? You need the coaching, but you need the mindset shift. But everybody wants the silver bullet. So we always had to find the balance between selling the silver bullet and doing the work. And whether it's financial or mental mindset stuff, you need budgets, you need a discipline, right? You need, if it's diet, it's, we all know it's pretty simple. What you eat and your exercise are going to be like two of the three most important factors. And so your mindset about doing those things right is the most important factor. So mastering the mental, regardless of what you want to accomplish, is really significant.
It's so true. And so what I focus on is three things. Number one, being intentional. Number two, being consistent. And then number three, being disciplined. Those three things are really the foundation of what you have to do. You have to be intentional with your time, and you have to be intentional with your behavior, what you're doing, where you're putting your time, energy, and effort into. And you have to be very consistent, showing up every single day. It's hard to be consistent every day, show up. And then two, being disciplined enough to do it, right? Because a lot of us are motivated. Like we're motivated to go out in the morning for a run. But then the next morning it's a little cold outside, maybe it's raining, you're like, the motivation wanes. Discipline's what's going to carry you through. So really focusing on being intentional, consistent, and disciplined is a big part of the mental game for me.
Now we're getting into the next one, which is physical power, and you're crushing it, half triathlon. So why don't you start on talk about physical power?
Well, honestly, for me, it started with a strong morning routine. So I'm up before 5 a.m. 5 a.m. is like sleeping in for me these days, and I was not a morning person. I was never a rise early person, but the science out there supports by getting up early and starting your day with physical movement, how powerful that is. And I adopted that. I started going out for a run because I figured I didn't have to have any special training. I didn't have to have any special equipment. I just had to put on a pair of shoes and go outside. There wasn't a lot of excuses I could make for running. So for me, that's how I started. I've lost over 50 pounds in a year. I ran a half marathon, a full marathon. I've done multiple full marathons now.
Congratulations, by the way. That's massive accomplishment.
Thank you. And I was someone who couldn't make it to my mailbox without being winded, Jay. Like literally, to go to my mailbox was like, it was a struggle. My first run was 0.67 miles, and I think I walked half of it. It was down to my cul-de-sac and back. So I didn't go far. It's really Getting up early and starting my day with physical movement, I was able to check some boxes. And then that started transforming my life. I started losing weight. So then you start feeling a little bit better about yourself. You get a little bit more confidence. And it was like a snowball effect for me. But it really starts with those early morning walks, those early morning runs, early morning bike rides where it's peaceful, it's quiet. The day, I have 3 kids. My kids haven't come downstairs yet. I'm not into the throes of the day. Clients are not texting or calling. My team members are not reaching out. So it's that hour or 2 hours that I just get of being alone where I can go and process my thoughts, process my emotions, work on that mental, emotional, spiritual side of things. And starting your day with movement is just, it's imperative.
Ironically, when you see one YouTube, 3 or 4 the same, and I listened to Napoleon Hill talking about the mornings this morning, and then I think Brian Tracy talking about the power hour. But for me, it's also very important to do it in the morning. Like I need to exercise in the morning. A lot of times it doesn't happen at night for whatever reason. And I've been doing the 75 hard program, if you're familiar with that. So it's 2 workouts a day. So if you don't get one in the morning, you're in trouble. And it's 75 consecutive days, 2 workouts. One should be outdoors, drink a gallon of water, follow a diet, no cheat meals, no alcohol, read 10 pages of a nonfiction book, and take a profile picture. So I'll take a profile picture in a minute.
There's a lot of those programs out there, but 75 Hard is an amazing one. It has the potential to really transform you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Chris said it, so long as you pick something and get committed to it. So Chris is training for marathons, triathlons. You can be darn sure that he's going to put the time in on the weekends because you can't just go out and run 26 miles.
No, and that's been the coolest thing about getting into endurance sports, right? Is that most people, at least the majority of the people, are not going to show up to the starting line of a marathon and be able to complete a marathon without having trained. Maybe there's people out there that can do it. They're a small percentage, but most people are not going to survive a full marathon if they haven't trained for it. And so having a plan and has made me be, again, intentional with my time. It's made me be consistent, showing up every day. It's made me get that discipline in my life, which is carried over to all other aspects of my life. So right now I'm doing my first full Ironman, which is November 16th in Arizona. And it's a 2.4 mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, followed by a full marathon. And there's no way, even though I'm in great shape now, I've spent 2 years really building this base level of fitness. There's still no way that I could show up at the starting line for that full Ironman, having not followed a training program and really worked my way up to it. This is week 1, day 1 of that training program. So this morning started off at 5 a.m. with a 45-minute bike ride. Then I jumped in the pool for an hour training in the pool. And then today was a strength training day. So then I hit the gym full morning.
God bless. Good luck, my friend. All right. Next up is emotional, and I'll let you kick it off.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things I like to talk about with emotional is a book that I read called Same as Ever by Morgan Housel. And it's just one of those phenomenal books that really talks about only focus on the things that are within your control. There are so many things, and I'll speak about it from a marketing standpoint because I know you're a marketing company and we all get so worried about some competitor moving in our market, right? Some new competitor comes in and what's going to happen to our cases? Are we going to go out of business? Oh my gosh. And we start worrying about all this stuff. We have no control over what competitor comes in our market and how much they're going to spend on TV or how many billboards they put up. Like we have zero control over that. And so I used to get so caught up on worrying about things that were just outside of my control, which is an emotional journey, right? I would ride the highs and I'd ride the lows. And in personal injury, we get a really big settlement. We're like, oh man, we're on the top of the mountain. This is amazing. Life's so good. And then we go through the inevitable time of things are maybe not so great. And now we're riding the lows. So I was constantly riding those highs and lows. I was constantly on that roller coaster. And once I read that book and realized, like, hey, look, I got to stop worrying about things outside my control and just focus on the things I can control. What can I control? I can show up how I show up every day. That's what I can control. I can control whether I show up, what energy I bring, the excitement that I bring. That's what I control. I can control the things about me. And so when I started focusing on that, man, it's crazy how much better I'm more here. I'm level. Maybe there's a day where I go up, maybe go down a little bit, but I never take that big dive and I never take the big high either. That book is phenomenal if you haven't read it.
And managing the emotional is so important as a leader. And I realized we used to start our weeks with our status meeting. And invariably, we were dealing with all the problems. And everybody would start out in a really crappy mood every Monday. And so we changed it around. And one thing we learned from EOS the entrepreneurial operating system, the book Traction. If you have not familiar, definitely check it out. And we have entire webinars and podcasts on that topic. If you're starting to hear about EOS and Traction, please make the time. But one thing every EOS meeting starts out with is a segue. And the segue is one good thing from your personal life and one good thing from your business life. And so we went around the room this morning in our L10 meeting, which is what you call your weekly leadership meeting. And everybody had some funny or positive story from the weekend. And everybody had some positive thing that they accomplished in work last week. God bless. We started out with positivity and I started out positive. Wow, everybody on my team did something great, business and personal. And it really keeps the energy high. And that was very important for me as the leader to stay positive and not get into that negative space. Another thing that's been super valuable for me is Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. There's one line in there that saved me every single day. And that's 80% done is 100% awesome. And that allowed me to empower my employees to do their thing, get it 80% right, and realizing that was great. They got stuff done, and maybe I could tweak it and give them some tips to get it to 100%. But really, it's about letting go and empowering folks. Kept my emotions high and kept me from always dwelling on the perfectionism that often comes with leaders or visionaries, as they're called in EOS.
As you said, and as you brought up, we operate under the EOS as well. I read Traction, fully bought in, and just starting your meetings out with that segue, it's amazing how much better meetings go. And so I make sure that in all of our meetings, we go around and somebody has to add something positive because it really changes that, gets that mind shift. Because you don't know how people's day are going, right? They may come to work and they had a really bad commute and somebody made them mad on the drive and they come into the office and they're already not in a good place. And so just be able to have that moment where you get to flip kind of the script and get everybody to think about what there's positive in the world, how powerful that can be.
Fantastic. Next one is spiritual. And again, I'm going to let you take the lead.
Yeah, well, look, for me, it's church. It doesn't have to necessarily be church for everyone, but for me, it's church. And so I grew up in a church, grew up going to church, but like many people, fell away from church during college and law school when I was out of my house and not with my parents who were taking me to church and making sure I go into church every Sunday. Other things took priority. And then my wife and I found our way back to church, but we were passive churchgoers. I show up on Sunday and then we're up and down with that as well. But really transforming my life, or part of that transformation, was really leaning into that spiritual side and not just being a passive churchgoer, but being an active participant in church. Just something as basic as I go to a church where there's a lot of music to begin and people are raising their hands and really feeling the power of God. And I wasn't that guy. I looked around the room like, what are these people doing? But now I leaned into that. If you come to church, you'll see me. I'm fully engaged. I'm singing the songs. My hands are raised. I'm making that connection because I've worked on that part of my life. I'm a part of a men's group that's for C-suite level people where we get together and we talk about faith and how important it is in running our business. And surrounding myself with those types of leaders has really grown that spiritual side. I start every morning with a prayer. First thing I do when I go to bed is I pray. Then I go get a bottle of water, have a bottle of water. I make my bed so I can start the day with a check box. I want to start my day with something positive and checking a box. But having that time to pray, meditate, sit in silence, really slow down your mind, control your mind. It's amazing what I've found in church. The leaders that I've surrounded myself in church, it's really just built me up so much and really supports me as I continue to grow as a leader and continue to grow as a business owner.
Great story. I also came to synagogue in my case a little bit late. I guess I mostly, because I played competitive hockey growing up in Canada, there wasn't a lot of time for Sunday school and going to the synagogue. And my sisters were much more active in the community. And then sadly, my dad passed away 8 years ago. And I went to the ritual, the minyan, and said Kaddish every day for the first 30 days. And I ran into the president of the synagogue when I was there. And he's, oh, Jay, I've been meaning to ask you, we need help with something on the board. We got hacked. And can you help me out with that? And of course, I'm the digital marketing guy. I'm not the IT guy, but I knew a guy and I went to the board meeting and we got this thing solved. And then we got new computers for everyone. Next thing, I'm on the board for 2 years of my synagogue. I got more spiritual than I knew was coming, but certainly found all kinds of peace and comfort and community in that spiritual connection.
Yeah, one thing I also talk about when it talks about the spiritual side of it is service. And so through my church, we serve a lot. And we actually have a National Serve Day coming up. I believe it's July 12th. But we do food packing drives and we do a lot to serve the community. It's amazing how when you put yourself out in the community and you serve others, how the Lord works in your life. And so that's been a big part of it for us too, is through service through our church.
And of course, it's not the intention, but the more folks you get to know and they get to know your personal injury lawyer, probably not bad for business either.
Not bad for business. Definitely not why I'm doing it, but it happens to be one of the advantages of doing it as well.
Yeah, the karma comes back to you. All right. The fifth is the power of five is financial. And
Yeah.
why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, for the first 5 years of doing business, it was money in, money out. Whatever was in the bank account is what we had to spend, and we made decisions based on what was in our bank account. We had no real financial strategy for running our business and how we're going to scale and grow. And when you're living your life like that, it can be stressful, especially when you're trying to scale and grow. And when you're trying to make money, making decisions based on finances, it brings in a lot of stress. It brings in a lot of emotional and mental stress to your life. And so, what we did is we adopted the profit first mentality from the book Profit First and really developed a financial strategy and how we're going to fill these different boxes and how we've set it up. We have our owner's comp box, our tax box. We have a line of credit that we do some operating cost on for or some case cost, making sure that we have a plan to pay that debt off. We don't like to carry debt. A box for taxes to be able to pay taxes and whatever else. If we have some a marketing program or something we want to do or whatever, we can have that kind of a box to put money in there. And so knowing what we have to hit, knowing what those goals are and how we're going to fill those boxes, it really brings a lot of relief. It takes a lot of the guesswork out, a lot of the stress out. We take the money and we transfer it into another account because Profit First says if the money's in your account, it's okay, the money's there, just spend it. Forgetting that, oh, by the way, I got to pay myself. No, by the way, I got to cover taxes. No, by the way, I got all these other things that we need to do. And so that was a big thing for me in doing that. And also understanding maybe I'm not the best person to manage the firm's finances. And so we went out and got a manager of finance and turned over the finances to someone else. And I'll tell you that since doing that, I sleep so much better at night. Used to, I was checking the bank account every single day, what's going in, what's going
Yeah,
out, tracking all the deposits. Oh, and I was so worried about it. I was so stressed about it all the time. And now
it
she
can be
did
massively distracting from your day job too.
100% because of checking the account. So now I ask her a simple question, on track or off track? And so if she says on track, I know we're good and we're in good shape. If she says off track, all right, we need to have a discussion and figure out why are we off track and how can I help to get us on track? And so that makes it a lot easier. It takes a lot of the guesswork out.
Yeah, I also read Profit First, but we're using a program called Simple Numbers, Greg Crabtree, and
Yep. Read
it's
it.
actually even better. Our whole mastermind, I'm in a mastermind with other agencies, and about 10 of us have opted into the Simple Numbers sharing program where we all share our numbers. And it's particularly helpful because it shows you what percentage you're spending on a min, what percentage you're spending on that important marketing box. And make sure nobody forgets that to leave a
Yeah.
box for the marketing box.
Yeah,
Uh,
so the masterminds that we're a part of is the same thing where we have to share our numbers and we kind of know what our industry standard is for each of those, our profit, our payroll, our operating expenses, our marketing expenses. And so knowing those what those numbers are, those benchmarks are, and where you fall is so important. For 5 years, I had no idea. I didn't even know what the industry
yeah.
averages were. And if I did know them, I didn't know where we stood on those. And so now we've worked really hard to make sure that we're growing and scaling in a healthy way. And one good thing, so one thing I like to talk about is we've all heard it. What gets measured gets improved, but what gets measured and made public gets drastically improved. And so being a part of a mastermind where we share
Yeah.
our numbers is crazy because now people are seeing what your numbers are and you have to be like, whoa.
Yeah, you're coming back in a quarter and you got to open the kimono again. Yeah. No, it's very important. Great. So we got through the first five, the power of five. First one was mastering the mental. And Chris talked about how he went from chaos to clarity. Second is physical power. And we both said doing something every morning will be a game changer and getting on some kind of program, training for a marathon or 75 hard. The emotional, Chris recommended the book Same as Ever by Morgan Housel, and that's on my new reading list. Spiritual, getting involved in your church or your synagogue, or even some kind of group like the men's group, been very powerful. And finally, financial. Chris is following Profit First. We're following Simple Numbers. But I think we both, one of the most beneficial things is knowing what the industry standards are and knowing, really just having knowledge and not going at it blindly like it sounds like we both did early in our business careers. That's the first five, the power of five. And now we're going to get into talking a little bit about business and some of the business coaching and teaching and speaking that we both do. And the first one is AI for PI, artificial intelligence for personal injury. And Chris has a whole presentation on this. I, of course, have had all kinds of AI featured on this podcast and our webinars. So, Chris, why don't you talk a little bit about AI for PI?
Yeah, AI is a game changer. It truly is. I think hopefully most people who listen to this have at least tried at least one tool such as ChatGPT, which is just an amazing tool. It's such a time-saving tool. So hopefully everybody's tried at least something, right? But there's so much out there that is making our jobs so much easier and allowing us to be more efficient. And one thing we talk about with our team members is we want them to be able to maximize these tools in order to make their jobs easier, more efficient, and which allows them to provide a higher level of customer service. At the end of the day, us as attorneys, we're in the customer service business. We're no different than going to sitting at a restaurant. We're providing a service, and we need to be able to provide a high level of service. So now with these AI tools that are out there, it's amazing how you can use them in every aspect of your business, from literally reception all the way to settlement. There's just so many tools out there now. And so for our firm, we truly want to be innovators in the space if we can, but at the very least, we want to be early adopters. I don't want to be sitting back in 10 years saying, man, I really wish we would have tried ChatGPT. That would have been cool, huh? One thing I say about all law firms is that we tend to be, this industry, the legal industry tends to be 10 years behind. Lots of industries were on TV and had billboards and all this stuff, and lawyers were like, no, not us. We're not doing that when it comes to
Well, the
marketing.
law was too classy to do that.
Internet marketing, we were behind the ball on that one too, where it's nah, we're not doing that. That's not who we are. And then there was a couple of firms that went into it, and there were still a lot of firms that said, nope, not us. We're not billboard. We're not those attorneys. And now it seems like all those firms are in there 10 years later, and they're saying, man, we should have done this 10 years earlier. I don't want that to ever be us. So we've actually we developed our own voice AI. And we have Grace, who's our voice AI. She answers our phones. She's our intake assistant. She can actually take a phone call and get it signed up for us. She will send a contract via text message, walk them through how to sign it in the contract, and get the case signed up for us, which is amazing. There's probably a lot of business owners or lawyers who are listening to this podcast going, you're crazy. You're allowing AI to sign up your cases. But yeah, we are. And I truly think it's one of those things that I think it's going to be here a lot sooner than later, but it's going to transform our intake in our law firm. It's just amazing because Grace, you know what? She shows up every single day on time. She's never late. She's never sick. She never takes a day off. She didn't get in some fight with her husband or her kids or have a really bad commute to work or whatever else can go wrong. The quality of the call is the same every single time. We train her once, teach her once, and no more training.
And she gets better and better, right? Because you can continually retrain her.
Keeps learning, getting better and better. And it's just amazing what we've been able to do with just that. But we have so many tools that we use in our firm. We literally have AI throughout our firm. I'm happy to talk about any of those with you, but really being innovators, being those early adopters, being out front in the space, I really think that's what changes things. That's what excites me. And really, AI is exciting. It's exciting to be out front leading the way. Grace is now calling clients to follow up on their care and treatment. She's able to make outbound calls. And so we're really able to transform the level of service that we provide because otherwise we're
Awesome. You
relying.
guys are in deep.
Yeah, we're in deep, but I'll tell you, it's been exciting what we're able to do with AI.
Yeah. I just like people, maybe two mindsets that Chris shared the first one, and that is get in and try it out. And don't be afraid. Yeah, Grace at the start probably wasn't nearly as good as the very best intake person on your team. But the reality is she's much better than the worst intake person and way better than the new intake person who just started. And that's where AI can outperform humans is you can train her to be better than the best person. And then she's always way better than the new person. And that's something you just can't account for in your training and management of a company. The second mindset is to think of AI in maybe three important areas of the firm. First up is marketing, and there's a whole bunch of things we're doing on the marketing side, working with firms. The second in case management, and a lot of the case management have built AI into their tools, or there's demand tools that can do demands, medical chronology. You want to test some of these tools. And then the final piece, which I think is really important, is the back end and the customer management piece. Case Status and Hona both have a lot of AI built into their product. And I'm begging, pleading, almost necessitating that our clients get one of the back end customer management tools, because that's significantly going to improve customer happiness. It's significantly going to improve the number of 5-star Google reviews the firm gets, which helps my job on marketing. And it's significantly going to improve referrals. And we all know referrals are the best cases that you'll ever get. We went deep on AI. Why don't we hop into marketing mastery, number 7?
Yeah, you and I've talked a lot about marketing, obviously, and we do a lot. But honestly, the thing that I like the most is the community impact stuff. How can you be involved in your community? How can you make an impact in your community? One of our core values is community. And one thing we focus on is how do we make the lives of our clients, our team, and our community better? We want to inspire that positive transformation. And so one thing we do, and it's coming up, and I'll put a little plug out there, is August 2nd, we do Project Backpack. This year, we're actually doing it at our office, hosting it at our office. We're going to have bounce houses and food trucks and some entertainment. I think that we have the mascot from Roger Dean Stadium coming to be live and face paint, all that kind of cool stuff. So we make a real big impact. We do a QR code to have people reserve their backpacks. We pack them full of all the school supplies. And so we're able to make this big impact in our community and also obviously get our name out there in a big way. And so I look at one thing that you and I talked about when it comes to marketing is time, money, and impact. And that's how I gauge what are we going to get involved in? How much time does it take for me or for my team? Obviously, how much money does it cost us? And then what's that potential impact? And so trying to find causes that are personal to you. So for me, Project Backpack was something that's personal to me. My mom was a retired school teacher, taught for 20 plus years. Unfortunately, I lost my mom 11 years ago to multiple systems atrophy, which is a kind of a Parkinsonian disease. And so this is one of those things that I know that I grew up seeing my mom as a school teacher. I rode to school every day. I went to the school she taught at. I saw what she did to give back to the community to provide her students with the best experience. And it's personal for me.
So I love it.
So finding those kind of marketing things that you can do that are personal is so important.
I could talk about marketing for an hour, and we don't have it today. I won't. But next up is the CEO model and running the firm like a CEO as opposed to working on cases.
The hardest part you talked about, you brought it up, was Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. And so the first thing I had to do was go through that 1, 2, 3 exercise. The ones are the things that you're really good at and that you really enjoy. The twos are the things that you're good at, but maybe you don't necessarily enjoy. The threes are the things that you really are not good at and you hate doing. And so when I did, it really was eye-opening for me to understand and appreciate why I was so miserable, why mentally, emotionally, spiritually, not necessarily financially, physically was not doing so well, is because I spent my day doing threes. I'd come to work every single day and I'd do things that I wasn't good at, and I didn't enjoy. And then I would wonder why I would go home miserable. Like, why am I so miserable today? It's because I spent my day doing stuff that I wasn't good at and I didn't enjoy doing. That's
Checking
why.
the bank account.
Yeah,
Multiple
so
times.
really implementing that buy back your time model and then was so instrumental for me.
Yeah, I think the most insightful thing that I've learned recently with the EOS model, and we've been running on EOS for 3 or 4 years and full time for the last 2 years, is what they call an accountability chart. And it's similar to an organizational chart in most businesses. And when we did the chart, I was in like 4 or 5 seats, and I'm down to 2 or 3 seats now, meaning that I'm the head of still 2 departments too many. And the most important thing that as we've progressed through our EOS journey is getting the leadership team really sitting in those leadership seats, getting me out of those roles, freeing up my time and getting me to do what I'm really good at. All right, we're getting there. Number 9, own an operating system. Oh, so this is where we jumped ahead.
Yeah.
So having an operating system like an EOS or like a business operating system.
Yeah, same thing. Read traction, fell in love with having an operating system in place. We subscribed to My90 so we can get online and have a program that tracks it. But the biggest part of that was accountability. And so what we were also famous for was there was some issue, some problem, and say, oh, I'll take care of it. I'll handle it. And then a week goes by, I still haven't done it. 6 weeks go by, I still haven't got it done. 3 months goes by, I haven't done it. 6 months goes by, I still haven't done it because there was no system in place for how to track and make sure people were doing it. Having a system in place where that really drives accountability has changed everything for us. So we have a leadership team. We meet weekly. We have our quarterly planning meetings, our annual planning meeting, and just having that level of transparency, that level of accountability has really changed everything for me because we have those big 90-day rocks that we know we're working on. We can see what those milestones are, and we know are we on track or off track to reach those milestones, which are ultimately going to lead us to those rocks, which are going to be the things that really drive your business forward.
Yeah, before EOS, you hate meetings. After EOS, you really appreciate a well-run meeting. And people are always like, how can you meet every week? We have a system. It's called an L10. There's a fixed agenda. We look at the scorecard. If there's an issue in the business, we add it to the issues list. And it's such a relief to know, if there's something you need to talk about, you add it to the issues list and it's going to come up on the agenda with your leadership team. Getting an operating system, we both love EOS. You could look at scaling up or several other systems, but highly recommend getting an operating system, and it'll change your life. It'll change your business.
100%.
All right. And last but certainly not least, masterminds and coaching.
Yeah, so important. Whether you join a masterminds group, whether you join a traditional coaching program, or at the very least have a mentor, have someone that that's been there, that's done it, who you can reach out to. And I know I've been lucky in my life to have a lot of mentors along the way to reach out to. But then really getting into coaching, the biggest thing about coaching is having that accountability partner. What I said in my business for so long was that everybody was really just an echo chamber. If I went and talked to someone, they just tell me what they thought I wanted to hear or what I wanted to know, whatever. And so I was just getting the echo. When I got into coaching, I would go to a coach and say, here's what I'm thinking. Well, let's talk through that a little bit. And oh, wow. And then the biggest part was being accountable. The coach would say, all right, in 30 days, what are you going to commit to? What are you going to do? And I had to make a commitment. And then in 30 days, I knew that I was going to have to show up and tell her yes or no. Did I do it or not? And I didn't want to let her down. And I got whatever it was done that I need to get done, which moved the business forward. And so really coaching, having that accountability partner is so important to grow your business. And then masterminds, I just finally got into a mastermind group. I'd been a business coach, but never a mastermind. Wow, the power of masterminds is incredible. To be in a room with other law firm owners or other business owners in whatever profession that you may be in, and be able to walk through what's working in your firm or what's working in your business, maybe what's not working in your business, seeing those other people's numbers, it's incredible. The impact it's having on my business just by surrounding myself with like-minded law firm owners from around the country who are in similar stages as I am and experiencing some of the same challenges that I am and growing and scaling my business.
Yeah, if you're thinking about inquiring into some of these Fireproof that Chris mentioned, Mike Morse is the founder of Fireproof, wrote a great book called Fireproof. PI attorney, haven't read it. You got to read the book first. Mike was the keynote speaker at TGR Live 2025, our conference. And other ones, PILMA, we participate in PILMA. Ken Hardison runs some great masterminds and great legal marketing with Ben and Brian. Awesome group as well. So inquire about a mastermind. For me, the benefit of being in masterminds, and in particular right now, I'm in a mastermind with other agency owners who have a niche business, is basically any problem you have, somebody else in the group is already solved. You're looking at software, you're looking at hiring, you're trying to figure out sales. Somebody in the group can give you a great answer to your question. We do hot seats where you get to bring a problem each quarter when we have our quarterly meetings. We do them monthly on Zoom as well. So basically, any problem you think you might have, the group can solve it for you in about 5 minutes. It really is awesome. And then you learn from everybody else how they're getting ahead, and you can get ahead. I thought of this a number of times while we were doing this, is Tony Robbins says, success leaves clues. And so many things we're talking about here today, getting coaching, reading these great books, learning from great success stories like Chris's. Success leaves clues, and you can speed up the speed towards the achievement of your goals by just finding someone who's gone through it before you, basically.
Yeah, you and I were at a summit not too long ago together, and I'd gone to that summit 5, 6 years earlier and heard from all the speakers and didn't take it to heart. Went back to my business and yeah, whatever, they don't know what they're talking about. So then fast forward 6 years, you and I are sitting in that same room and I'm hearing the speakers. I'm like, yep, made that mistake. Yep, did that. Yep, messed that up because I didn't listen the first time. And hearing from other successful law firm owners who have grown and scaled their business, they made a lot of mistakes along the way. I repeated those same mistakes because I didn't avail myself to trust in that process and learn from it. And so I couldn't have said it better. Really learning from other people who've made the mistake, who've gone down some path that didn't go where they thought it was going to go, has helped me a lot and saved me some time now that I'm at a different level, much different level now.
Chris, this was awesome. And hopefully we can contribute to helping folks transform their life and their practice. The last question we always ask is the second last question. What's a great referral for you?
Look, the best thing about being a personal injury attorney is that anybody that's injured in any sort of accident, it can be a referral. So it can truly be anyone. They just have to be injured. But obviously, we're here and happy to help. The good thing is we have offices in Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee. So anywhere, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, anyone that's involved in an accident, hey, think of us and we'll take good care of them.
And the last question, where do they find you?
So lots of different ways to find us. We have obviously our law firm website is kellerswan.com. I've done a lot of on the personal side with the Rise and Transform framework. So you can find me at callchriskeller.com. I have a blog, lots of videos, a lot of content there. The book will be out soon. So either kellerswan.com or callchriskeller.com.
Chris, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey, appreciate it, Jay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for listening to the 10 Golden Rules of Internet Marketing for Law Firms podcast. Please send questions and comments to podcast@10goldenrules.com. That is podcast@TENgoldenrules.com.